think we're, all right, guys, I'm recording now. So social engineering, I think Jovan had mentioned it. It's a very simple concept, right? It can be used for good and it can be used for bad, as almost anything, right? We can all agree to that. So, but in terms of security, we want to talk about the danger that social engineering can pose to your network. So you walk into any government building, you walk into any business office, they have a network in there with firewalls, right? And that's on the computer side. They have doors that you need to be buzzed into. You probably have a security guard at the desk who, they're probably going to write your name, check your ID. All that is a form of security. Okay. So you have that going on, and then you have social engineering techniques. And frankly, social engineering is the use of deception to manipulate individuals into giving away confidential or personal information, which they then use for fraudulent purposes, right? So someone, sending you an email stating that you've won the iPhone 14 or the iPhone 20 that's not been released, right? They want you to get on this VIP list, and you get excited and you click on it. And then they go, well, put in your zip code and put in this, put in that. Next thing you know, they have, maybe 2 or 3 sets of data that they can piece together and say, it's you, right? Social, well, not social, that's too obvious, but let's say date of birth, where you live, your gender, maybe your last name. Combined, it has a good probability of being who you are, right? So let's just dive into it. The first item we want to look at here is called phishing. So phishing is a social engineering technique. It's very, very common. And it's the practice, well, they call it the fraudulent practice. They're all fraudulent in this case, but it's the practice of sending emails which are purporting to be from a reputable company in order to induce individuals to reveal personal information such as passwords, credit card numbers, or email addresses. And that's just what I mentioned. One time, a friend of mine sent me a link that said Nike was giving out some, Nike brand shoes, and all you had to do was click on the link. Many people clicked on the link. However, when you look at the URL, you find out that it's not HTTPS, right? It was just HTTP, which is an unsecured URL, which is one of the telltale signs of a fraudulent email or fraudulent site. Most sites these days have HTTPS as a form of security. We'll delve into that later, but just FYI, don't click on any link that is HTTP and trying to sell you something. It's fraudulent. All right, the next social engineering technique we want to look at is called smishing. And as you notice, these all have this funny vishing, smishing, phishing going on here. But that's the trend. It helps you remember. So in this case, they're not sending you an email telling you that you've won, a new car. This time around, they're sending you a text message. So you're on your phone, watching your YouTube, you get this alert that says, you are a lucky winner, right? You've won some electronics from Best Buy, right? Click here and claim your prize, right? So this attempt here is through text message. This one here is through email. Phishing, smishing, 2 different things. This next one here is called vishing with a V, and this one is via voicemail. So this kind of sounds like it rhymes, right? Voicemail, vishing. Well, these 2 don't, but anyway. So this is through voicemail. You get that voicemail that says, you just purchased a laptop from, Best Buy or Target, and they want to sell you extended warranty. Right, this happened to a friend of mine. They went out and bought a brand new car. They purchased extended warranty in addition to the manufacturer's warranty that existed and the dealer's, 30-day warranty. This guy gets home 2 weeks later, they get that, phone call stating, hey, Mr. So-and-so, We noticed that you bought this new car, but you didn't get extended warranty on it, right? So this guy called the dealer and said, hey, did I buy warranty? And the dealer said, yes, you did. But we know that these people keep calling our buyers. So do not just block their number. Don't talk to them, right? So that's a prime example of what vishing is. It's a phone call. All right, the next, social engineering. And again, remember, this is all social engineering techniques, meaning they want something from you. They want some information. It could be email message. Well, if they reached you, then they do have your email address already, right? Which you probably clicked on some website and entered it. Or sometimes, these bad guys, they actually buy emails from other bad guys, right, who've already compromised your system. It could be directly to you, or they could have hacked your, another company that you've put your email into their system. So this is very common. If you get spam, you're getting this stuff. Social engineering is everywhere. All right. And again, just to mention the good parts of social engineering. I mean, if you're driving your car and you get to a stop sign, right? That sign that you're looking at that makes you stop is also social engineering, right? But in this case, it's the good social engineering. It says, stop, let the other guy pass, right? So that's the good part of it. It helps it, register more. So spam is basically email from spammers, and spammers are the bad guys who want to trick you for your information. All right, so the next social engineering technique, right? So the bad guys have all these techniques in their toolbox. It just, how do they want to get your information? They can go in there and say, hey, I'm going to use phishing, smishing, spam, a little bit of, what's the other one here? What have you, others that we'll find shortly. And then they can come and target you and attack you. Usually they're attacking thousands of people. You're just one of those people that gets an email, okay? The next item we want to look at is spam over instant messenger, right? So when they're spamming you, they're sending you email. But when it's spam over messenger, it's called spam, S-P-I-M. Over here, the bad guy was a spammer. Over here, the bad guy is a spammer. They're pretty much doing the same thing. It could be one guy, right, spamming you and then spamming you at the same time, right? And, instant messenger, all these platforms have it. Yahoo has it, you name it, they all have it, Gmail, etc. The other social engineering technique here is called spear phishing. And it's basically the fraudulent practice of sending emails ostensibly from a known or trusted sender in order to induce targeted individuals to reveal confidential information. And they all kind of sound the same. They all kind of rhyme, right? It looks like it came from Microsoft. It looks like it came from Dell, or someone could be. So this is more advanced, right? A bad guy can hack into a company's environment, right? Once they are in there, they can create an email account, and then they send an email to you. When you look at it, it's perfect, right? It's HTTPS. There's no misspelling in the URL. It's perfect. And then you will trust that email. All right. So in that case, you really don't have any defense against it. You look at it as like, hey, this is from Dell. I have a laptop from them. I have a login with them. I bought this thing. I have this warranty. They're selling me something, right? It's from Microsoft. It's from, Target, Home Depot, what have you. So these things happen all the time. All right. So that one is spear phishing. That's another social engineering technique. The next one we want to look at, and guys, I'm just going to go over this really quickly, since this is an intro, and we'll spend more time in our following videos as well. Dumpster diving, which is an interesting term, right? But you see it in the movies, right? When the detectives are investigating the bad guy, right? They'll go and say, hey, let's go look in the bad guy's trash. Let's go dump in the trash or dumpster and find his receipts, where he's been, what is he eating, what he smoked, so we can get some DNA off of it, right? So that is the general idea with dumpster diving. So it's basically dumpster diving is looking for treasure in someone else's trash, right? So in the world of IT, dumpster diving is a technique used to retrieve information that can be used to carry out an attack. Now, if you're one of those folks that you just take a receipt out of your pocket, crumple it, and throw it in your trash, a bad guy could go into your trash, right, and pick it up and look at maybe the last four of your credit card number, right? Those attacks used to be very common in the 90s, but recently, I guess the credit card companies are more, they've built a lot of security against that. It's very difficult to use the last four, but anything can happen, so you want to, either you're shredding your receipts or you're tearing them apart. I do that a lot. My fiance is always like, why are you tearing it up? I'm like, I work in IT, I know what's going to happen. And she's like, okay, here, I have 10 receipts, tear them up. But, dumpster diving, another one to look out for. Shoulder surfing, this one here it's an interesting one, right? If anyone is spending too much time behind you as you type on a computer, they're probably looking at what you're typing, right? They could be looking at your password. They could be spying on an email you're sending to your boss, shoulder surfing, the practice of spying on a user in order to obtain personal access information. You go to the ATM and you're putting in your PIN number, or you go to 7-Eleven to get your coffee or Starbucks. You swipe your card, you're putting in your PIN number, and the guy right there is just looking at you type your PIN, right? He may not be advanced enough to use your PIN for something malicious, but a really smart bad guy can do that, right? I've heard stories of, these bad guys installing I guess they call it a reader or some sort of a reading device on a credit card, the machine that you swipe your credit card on. So when you go and swipe your credit card, it simply records your card. It takes a picture of it or tracks it. And then if they are able to get your PIN number, then they're really in business, right? They're going to spend all your money. So that is also one of the techniques there. This one here is called farming. So guys, we have one page. I think we'll end on page number 3. So I know it's getting late, but we're going to power through this. The next one we want to look at is called farming, PHA. And it's a fraudulent practice of directing internet users to a bogus website that mimics the appearance of a legitimate one in order to obtain personal information. That's also very common. The hackers can create a site that looks just like the site that you're accustomed to and somehow send it to you. You click on it, you get there, it's like, hey, this is my Bank of America account. I'm going to log in. You put your information in there. They're like, oh, well, system is not in service, but they have your information, right? So that's also very common. It happens a lot, right? People just don't hear about it. All right, the next one we want to look at is tailgating. And tailgating is a very tough one. And I'll give you an example and you can understand why it's tough. Let's say you work in a secured environment and you go out to lunch, you're coming back, you're holding your lunch. In one hand, you have your ID card, in another, you're going to swipe it, what have you. You get there, there's a guy standing there with some office supplies, right? You think, someone in your building has ordered some print paper, some cartridge, what have you. And you're being polite to this guy who's got all these things he's holding, and you let him in. So you buzz your card and then you let the guy in. But little did you know that this person has planned this whole thing, right? He went out and bought these things, stood at the door and waited for the courteous person to show up and say, hey, buddy, come on in. In that case, what's recommended is if you're going to let someone in, you need to walk them directly to, if you have security, or if you have an office manager, you walk them to that person, or you go and tell your office manager and say, there's a guy out here, did you order these supplies? Go talk to him, right? But nonetheless, tailgating happens a lot, right? It happens all the time. All right, the next one you want to look out for is eliciting information, which is a technique used to acquire information discreetly without other person knowing, in order to obtain it without arousing suspicion or the person realizing what you're doing. You cannot ask them directly. That one is kind of vague to me. Unless someone actually tricks you, you will know that they're getting some information. Where are you from? Oh, okay. How long have you been here? Do you work at so-and-so? Do you know, it's a conversation and you're learning as you go. The next one. Oh, yeah. Do you have a question or? Okay. All right. The next one is called whaling. And I just put here that whaling is for the big shots. It's really not for the little guy. When a bad guy comes looking for a whale, as the name says, whaling is a strategic phishing attack. Okay. And it's targeted towards high profile executives, and it's disguised as a permitted email. An attacker can prod the target for information that helps them to access sensitive areas of the network. So if you have your chief information officer, some bad guys can target him directly and try to get some information from him and use that info to attack your network, right? And there have been instances of competitor companies doing that to their competition. Okay, so that happens a lot as well. Prepending. So here they go. For example, a prepend command can be used in a scripting language. So this one is more benign. You go to a site, there's some jQuery in there that does something, and then somehow they're grabbing your information. We'll get to that, but it's a little vague. Identity fraud is very common, even in real life, outside of IT. Someone can steal your license or your passport or any identifying information. It could be your library card, and use it to impersonate you. Okay, so this one is pretty straightforward. Invoice scams. Criminals send bills for goods or services that the business never ordered. Okay, if this has happened to you before, you probably understand the magnitude. I used to live in an apartment, and I started getting bills for, I think it was herbal supplements, right? And these were not small bills. This will come like $120. One came and it was $400. That's what really caught my attention. Some guy in the building, I don't know, was ordering this stuff. I was being charged, but I was never getting the product, right? So that's stuff was happening there. All right, credential harvesting, also known as password harvesting, is a process of gathering valid usernames, passwords, private emails, and email addresses through infrastructure breaches. This one is a big deal, okay? It happens to a lot of companies, a lot. They just don't talk about it because it's bad for their brand, right? So maybe in 3 years' time, you'll hear that, oh, well, the company that you have a store credit card from got breached 2 years ago, right? Sometimes they inform you, sometimes they don't, but it's called credential harvesting. All right, it's one of the techniques there. Reconnaissance is basically when the guy is spying on your network, all right, and they can use many strategies to do that. We'll get into a well-known framework for spying on a target system, okay? So that will come down the road. A hoax, this one is interesting. So, okay, we have 10 more minutes. All right, we're not upgrading right now. So a hoax is basically anything that can be used to create fear anger, or seem important, right? Important. So in other words, a hoax is anything that makes you forward, reply, or action. Well, makes you forward, reply, or act without first validating the source of information. So here they're preying on your emotions, right? Let's say you're a New York Giants fan and, you know, somebody sends you an email stating, oh, well, you know, the Giants will never go to the Super Bowl, what have you, right? Get you angry and you fire back, right? And then they're like, well, you know, if you want to be on the list for the prediction, send us your credit card. You know, people bet, the sports betting, people put their information all over the place. Yeah, so a hoax is playing on your emotions, right? Whether it's fear or anger, right? Anything that you're emotionally tied to, you will express an emotion, right? When the right buttons are pushed, right? So a hoax is one of those things, one of the techniques. Impersonation, I think we kind of went over one of these that look like, which one was it? Anyway, impersonation is when they try to be you, right? Meaning they have to steal something of yours. Either it's your user login. So it's just like your coworker. It's just like you leaving your computer at work to go use the restroom or to go make a quick phone call, you know, to your family member and leaving your computer unlocked, right? The bad guy in your office can sit at your desk and send a mean email to the boss, and then you come back and you're getting fired, right? So that's impersonation. Never leave your computer unlocked. Okay, if you have to step away, just do the Control Alt Delete, lock your computer. Or you can hit the Windows and L keys and lock it. All right, so that's impersonation for you. The watering hole attack. This one is, it's another interesting one. So I'm just going to read through it. Watering hole is a computer attack strategy in which an attacker guesses or observes which websites an organization often uses, and then infects one of them with malware, right? Eventually, some member of that group will become infected, okay? And so on and so forth. The name, so this is what makes it interesting to me, right? The name is derived from predators in the natural world who wait for an opportunity to attack their prey near watering holes. And I think we've all seen that in the wild, the crocodile lays in the water until the deer come to drink, and then they grab a deer, right? They have dinner. So yeah, a place where everyone's going, the bad guys can. So it could be a website that everyone browses to. It could be your company's forward-facing website. The bad guys can infiltrate that website, install some malware. You go in there, you click any link, and you're downloading malware, right? It can do anything to your computer. It can install a program that runs quietly. Nothing bad happens, but it's logging your keystrokes, your login information over time, and they can use it against you, or they can shut down your account, delete all your documents, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So these are pretty dangerous techniques here. Typo squatting, also known as URL hijacking. A sting site or a fake URL is a form of cyber squatting and possibly brand jacking, which relies on mistakes such as typos made by internet users when typing address. So let's say you always, you know, Yahoo is your email provider, so you always type yahoo.com. One day you might make a mistake and type Yahoo with, 3 O's. And a bad guy has already purchased that domain name, right? Yahoo with 3 O's, built a site that looks like Yahoo, and is waiting for the day that you make that mistake. When you do, and you go to sign in, you put all your information in there and they have your data, right? They can display whatever information they want. They can actually transfer you back to the original Yahoo site to have you log in again. And you'll be like, oh, wait, I thought I put my information in, but they already have your information now, right? And you don't even know. So that's also big business. Like you go to the domain hosting companies and people buy domains all the time and they sell it and use it for stuff like this. All right. And like I mentioned, the best way to tell that this is malicious is usually a misspelling, right? So like I said, Yahoo with 2 O's is the right one. And then you have Yahoo with 3 O's, right? Yahoo.com. And then you can have this, right? So this is the bad one. Okay. So it's a mistake, you know, we're all human, things happen. So misspellings, foreign language spellings, misspellings based on typos, plurals of a singular name, different top level domains. So instead of org, you have com, instead of com, you have org, right? And so on and so forth. So that is the last technique we'll look at, typo squatting. Okay. So that brings us, there's more, I'm still working on my notes, but these techniques, there's so many of these techniques, it'll just blow your mind. And it just goes to show you the risk we have in having these phones and computers and cars. Our cars are pretty much computers now, right? Some of our houses are smart houses, right? So there's a lot of opportunity for the bad guys to target us. All right, so that ends our intro to cybersecurity, at least social engineering techniques. Any questions? I know I kind of sped through the material there. Javon, you have any questions?
I was actually just thinking about when you were talking about the what was it, reconnaissance. I was just thinking about the attack frameworks, that's all.
Yes. That what is it, MITRE attack, MITRE, yeah, people call it so many names.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, and then there's a diamond one that it's actually that's a little more complicated. It talks about adversary and some other stuff. I don't understand it.
Yeah, it's, you know, once you understand it, it kind of makes sense. So the MITRE attack, when you look at it, it's not arranged in sequence. I think that's what throws people off.
Yes.
It's not. So step one could be something else. And then reconnaissance is something, you know, it's in a different sequence. But once you arrange it, you'll see how the bad guy comes to spy on you. Then they gather some information, then they use that to get in, and then now they establish, you know, their little control panel there. And then either they do a lateral spread or lateral or vertical spread, et cetera, et cetera. So once you kind of arrange it, it makes a ton of sense. You know, it's almost intuitive once you get it. And then the only thing you have to really read or kind of research is the techniques they're using, because it's like 7 deep or 14 deep. And then, you know, you click on it and then it pops out something else. You have to read that as well. But all that is just stuff you can always research, right? You don't have to know all that. But the first level, you have to know.
Okay. Yeah, because in the, what is it? The what did I say? The kill chain. Yes, they talk about all these, they talk about, you know, the reconnaissance, and then they talk about C2.
Yes.
Yeah. So
yeah, because it's a process, you know, how would I, you know, how can I get into your network? You know, I'm just a guy on the street. How can I get in there? If I turn on my laptop and I have a Wi-Fi